So the type of milk that I compared are whole cow's milk, soy milk, pea milk, almond milk, oat milk, goat's milk, flax milk, and coconut milk. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Milk Mini Course from Growing Intuitive Eaters. My name is Dr. Taylor Arnold. I am a pediatric registered dietitian, mom to 3, and nutrition PhD. And today we're going to be talking all about milk, and I'm going to be answering some of the questions that you submitted on my Instagram page. So to kick us off, let's talk about if milk is even necessary. So the purpose of milk recommendations for kids is to provide a source of calories, protein, and calcium after 1 year. But is milk a need? Is it a necessity? And the answer to that is no, absolutely not. Your child can thrive drinking milk. Your child can thrive drinking a milk alternative, and your child can thrive not drinking any milk at all. I should note here that I absolutely do not recommend a complete avoidance for dairy for young kids unless it's medically necessary, such as in the case of a food allergy. This is because the complete avoidance of a food, especially a really highly allergenic food like dairy, can actually cause a food allergy to that food in kids. And dairy is a very tough allergy to navigate in our society because it's such a common food in our food system. So milk is not a necessity, but I do recommend rotating in dairy foods frequently. If you choose not to, if you're raising a vegan child, for example, it's just important for you to know that this is a risk for your kid. And the danger with this is that your child might be exposed for the first time, even unintentionally, to dairy when you're not present, and then potentially have a reaction. So milk, not a necessity, although I do recommend rotating in dairy products on a regular basis for your young child to prevent a food allergy, assuming that they don't have any allergy or intolerance to those foods. So we can achieve the purpose of milk without milk. So adequate calories, adequate protein, calcium, fats, and vitamin D. These are all achievable through food, although vitamin D may need to be supplemented, in which case you should talk to your pediatric dietitian or your pediatrician if this is the right decision for you, your kiddo, or your family. So your kid doesn't like milk, or you're vegan, or you don't want to serve any milks or milk alternatives for whatever reason, that's okay. I've got your back, and we're going to talk about that too. So before we get to that, we're gonna go through all the milk options. So we're gonna start with, yes, you wanna serve milk to your kid, but you don't know which one to serve because there's a lot. So we're gonna compare the nutrients. So in a few minutes, we're gonna talk about how to choose a milk for your kid, but first we need to chat about the nutrient composition of all the milks and milk alternatives, because these are really important in deciding which milk to provide for your family. So the nutrients I chose to compare between the different types of milks are calories, protein, calcium, vitamin D, and total amount of fat. Now, I chose these nutrients for a couple reasons. One is they're the reason for the milk recommendation. So the reason that, like, the American Academy of Pediatrics, for example, recommends that children drink milk for the reason that it's a great source of these nutrients. So that's one of the reasons I picked these nutrients to compare milks by. The next is these nutrients are very important for growing kids, and cow's milk is a great source of these nutrients, so it's going to be interesting to compare the other milks to cow's milk, which is a standard recommendation in the US. And the third reason why I picked these nutrients is I wanted to limit to a few key nutrients rather than evaluating all the nutrients in each of these milk and milk alternatives. We don't need to do that because milk, when it's included in the diet, is only part of the diet. It's not the whole diet, so your child is still going to be getting nutrients from all the other foods that they're eating. So the type of milk that I compared are whole cow's milk, soy milk, pea milk, almond milk, oat milk, goat's milk, flax milk, and coconut milk. So let's start with whole cow's milk. First, I'm using whole cow's milk in the comparison because, well, there really isn't any reason to serve kids lower fat milk like skim milk or 2%. Fat is a really important nutrient for kids of all ages, not just toddlers, and really for all people. Recommendations to include skim or 2% milk are outdated and were originally rooted in concerns about weight and pediatric obesity. But let's put that to bed right now. So a 2019 article by Vanderhout et al. In the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that children who drank whole milk have less body fat and are less likely to be obese obese or overweight than those who drink skim milk. Now, obviously, there are tons of factors that go into play that affect a child's weight, and I'm not one that likes to focus on weight because I think there are a lot of other determining factors that are more important in your child's health. But we can say that drinking skim or low-fat milk is not helpful for reducing childhood obesity risk. So if you choose cow's milk for your family, it's not necessary to ever switch off of whole milk unless your medical provider recommends it. And even so, there are very, very few cases when skim milk would be recommended over whole milk for kids for medical reasons. So whole milk is what I recommend if you're choosing cow's milk. So let's talk about the nutrients in cow's milk. It's a great source of calories, protein, and fat, and it's almost always fortified with vitamin D, so it's a great source of that. And it's a good source of calcium, but there are actually a few other milks that are better sources of calcium than cow's milk. So keep that in mind. If your number one priority is calcium, cow's milk might not actually be the best choice for your family, but typically I don't recommend choosing milk just based on one nutrient. We want to look at the whole well-rounded picture of all the nutrients in that milk. So next up, goat's milk, the most expensive option of the bunch. The nutrition profile in goat's milk is super similar to cow's milk, which really isn't surprising because they're both animal milks. Now, goat's milk has a lower lactose content than cow's milk, so some people claim that it's like easier to digest. However, this really only matters to people who have trouble digesting lactose. So this would be someone who has a lactose intolerance or they have a sensitivity to fermentable carbohydrates. So keep in mind that lactose intolerance is very uncommon in young toddlers, but it does get more common as kids get older. So if you are choosing goat's milk because you've heard that it's easier to digest, this might not be applicable to your child unless you know they're lactose intolerant. Okay, now we're gonna chat about soy milk. So soy milk is the traditional choice for kiddos who don't tolerate cow's milk. It's a plant-based milk, it's high in protein, it's actually slightly higher in protein than cow's milk and goat's milk, and it has pretty decent calories, an average amount of calcium, and an average amount of fat. Overall, it's a good choice for an affordable and well-rounded plant-based milk for your kids. Now, Ripple or pea milk, Ripple is the brand name for pea milk. This is my favorite choice for plant-based milks for kids due to the calcium content. It's got the highest calcium content of the bunch that we're gonna compare today, and it's got awesome protein content. The calories aren't fabulous. There's 74 calories per cup of Ripple compared to 152 calories per cup of cow's milk. So this is not gonna be the greatest choice for a kiddo who's struggling with growth or weight gain, but for a child who's growing well and whose parents want a plant-based option, this is a good choice. I also personally think that the taste and texture is really good for a plant-based milk. Okay, oat milk. This is super popular. I was actually really surprised at how popular it was when I polled my Instagram audience. Now, based on the popularity, I feel like I'm gonna burst some bubbles here, but I'm not really a fan of oat milk for kids. While the calories are pretty great, better than soy milk and Ripple, the protein is really low and the calcium is only average. So we're providing lots of calories to kids without the added benefits of the protein that we would find in soy milk, pea milk, cow's milk, or goat's milk. The downside of this is that a child will use oat's milk to meet calorie quotas, or they're gonna fill up on that milk, and then not have adequate protein intake. If your kid is a stellar protein eater and they have great calcium intake and they enjoy oat milk, then great, this could be a really good option for your family. Keep it in your rotation. But if your kid is a less than amazing protein eater, choosing a milk higher in protein might be a better choice for your family. All right, almond milk. So almond water, as I sometimes call it. The calories and protein are extremely low in almond milk. If you want to serve something besides water to keep your kid hydrated, then almond milk is great. It also has a stellar calcium content, but I don't consider almond milk as a substitute for a protein-rich milk, especially if it's sweetened. Almond milk can be equated with juice. Unsweetened, it can be a yummy addition to the diet to get fluids in, but don't consider it as a good source of protein or calories or as an adequate substitute for cow's milk. Flax milk, it can be a great source of omega-3s, but That's pretty much it, except maybe average calcium. It's got 0 protein in it, so this is not something that I typically recommend for kids. And finally, coconut milk. So it's got horrible protein content, just like the flax milk, 0.5 grams per cup, so slightly higher than the 0 grams per cup of the flax milk. And that's compared to 8 grams of protein per cup for cow's milk. Now, coconut milk is known for its fat content, but that's even lower than in whole cow's milk or goat's milk. It does have a stellar calcium content, almost rivaling that of pea milk. So coconut milk does have one thing going for it. So in summary for the nutrient comparison, cow's milk, goat's milk, soy milk, and pea milk are all really great options nutritionally. Pea is the clear winner with calcium content, although soy, cow, and goat's milk are all great sources of calcium too. The protein content for these 4 milks are all very similar, but the calories do vary. The highest calorie option of these 4 milks is whole cows, followed by goats, then soy and pea. But in terms of calorie content, the plant milks just can't rival cow and goat's milk.